2022 UFC Hall of Famer, WEC and UFC legend Cub Swanson looking to throw back and throw down, taking on the Dragon Jonathan Martinez coming up this weekend. And this is kind of the craziest part about it. I'm not going to say what weight class it's at. You can probably already tell. Well, Jonathan Martinez, he struggled in the past with his weight. Probably going to be at featherweight, right? Nope. Cub Swanson's about a month away from his 39th birthday. And listen, we're talking about a guy that's going for his 41st pro fight. Now he's moving down to bantamweight. So unless there's a big time change throughout this week and it gets scratched and they throw it at 145, this one's scheduled for bantamweight. And I think that's absolutely an insane move for Cub Swanson, considering the fact that he just beat Darren Elkins in impressive fashion, a performance tonight bonus at 145. Obviously, we know about the high highs, the low lows, the 4-fight losing streak that he was on before this now 3-1 record in his last 4 fights. For Swanson, though, it is a little bit of a head scratcher. I assume you see some of the success late career, or at least guys that have thrown it down to 135, like Frankie Edgar, Jose Aldo, and, some of the success that Dominic Cruz has had. And he's seen those guys move down the 10 pounds and still look halfway fresh. That's why he's moving down. But it really is a head scratcher for me why Swanson would make the move to bantamweight.
It's not the same, though, is the problem. What Cub Swanson's doing is way worse than what those guys did. People forget. Jose Aldo's like 34 years old, by the way. Jose Aldo
36 now.
My point is, when Jose Aldo moved from featherweight to bantamweight, he was like 31, 32. He wasn't old at all in his MMA. He was old in his MMA career, but physically, he wasn't an old person. Frankie Edgar went from lightweight, moved down to featherweight and bantamweight before he got to his 40s. Now, the move down to bantamweight was quite late into his career, but still, he was like that 35, 36. I hate the fact that Cub Swanson's moving down to bantamweight for this fight, and I really like how you opened up this video, because I agree. I really thought upon first view of this matchup that, okay, it's going to be a featherweight. Martinez is finally competing in the weight class that I've always felt suited him the best, but that's not the case. And this is what I keep on going back to. Not that Jonathan Martinez is as good as Giga Chikadze, because that's not the truth whatsoever. But do they fight in a similar manner? Yes, they do. They're very similar. They're both very good kickboxers on the outside who throw a lot of kicks. Can Cub Swanson eat a body kick at 145? Not great. So now you're telling me the guy's older and he's taking more weight off of himself and he's fighting another guy who goes for a lot of body attacks. Again, that's just a very bare bones game of how I think this fight could go. It's just, I don't love the fact that the last time I've seen a guy get TKO'd, it was due to a body shot. Now he's fighting a guy who throws a lot of kicks to the body, goes to the body quite a bit, and he's taking another 10 pounds off himself, because I really do think that's key.
Well, and you can focus in on it if you do look at Jonathan Martinez. The wins are good. The level of competition in those wins, not great. Obviously the biggest one that jumps off the page is a guy who everybody thought was going to be something, and Thomas Almeida. And it was a fun fight at 145. It really was. But again, the last 3 wins for Martinez, he looked really good against Vince Morales' last time out. That was back in May. And in that matchup, it was at bantamweight. He was able to make the limit. He was a pretty big favorite. Minus 270 was Martinez. But Alejandro Perez, where he gets dropped in the first round at the end of it, he rallies back round 2, round 3. Even one of the judges scored the first round for him because he won the round.
Yeah.
It was just, does a knockdown and damage outweigh a really good round? He beats Zviad Lazishvili, who came in on short notice and then got cut. Lose to Davey Grant, pretty good boxer, using his hooks.
And that's the thing too, Jonathan Martinez, for the highs that I like to bring up, he does struggle with some of the boxing, or not even the boxing, the range closing of some of his opponents, and that's what Cub Swanson's really good at doing. He can lunge, he can jump, he's really unorthodox that way.
And the best part for Cub Swanson, he switched up his style his last time out. He held his hands incredibly low against Darren Elkins, but he had the really odd angle punches. Obviously, you saw the spinning wheel kick that was able to get the finish. But for Swanson, we touched on it. The 4-fight losing streak that he did have, he had crazy win streaks from 2012 until 2014. George Roop, Ross Pearson, Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, Dennis Seaver, and Jeremy Stevens. Then he loses to Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway back-to-back. Then he beats Hakran Diaz. He beats, who else? Kawajiri, Duho Choi, which was his Hall of Fame performance. And then Artem Lobov in a main event. If you go on Google Trends for the last, 10 years, and you search Cub Swanson, the biggest search term was when he was going into his fight against Artem Lobov. Can you believe that?
That hurts, my brain to know that. Cub Swanson deserves better. That's all.
But if you do look at it for Cub Swanson, when he faces primary strikers and when he faces primary boxers, he tends to throw a lot more leg kicks than he does in the majority of his fights. His fight against Artem Lobov and his loss to Shane Burgos are proof of that. And the weird thing about Cub Swanson, when he does face primary strikers and he chooses to throw kicks, or at least primary boxers, and he throws a lot of kicks, it's not that he starts off hot and heavy with them in the first round and then kind of gets away from it as the fight goes on, as he incurs a lot of damage. He actually tends to pick up his leg kicks as the fights go on. So an interesting thing about Cub Swanson, but you touched on it. Boxing really is the specialty. He can struggle with some of the takedowns. He can struggle with some of the grappling. I go back to his fight against Jens Pulver with WEC where he gets caught in the 10-finger guillotine.
Cub Swanson is a black belt. They're going to tell you that a lot. I've never seen Cub Swanson convincingly out-grapple somebody in an MMA fight. Now, I know he has. He hit that one sick hip toss on Dennis Seaver that I'll never forget because it was awesome. He has really good hip tosses. Like, a Cub Swanson hip toss, it's so clean, it's not even funny. But he's been submitted and controlled on the mat a lot in his MMA career. And when, like, Max Holloway goes out there and can submit you, and I know Max Holloway was, like, really putting it on him with the volume before Cub Swanson went for an ill-advised takedown attempt. Just, Swanson, they are going to bring up, like, oh, he's got a black belt. But it's more Shogun than it is Damian Maia, I would say, at this point.
Well, and the other thing, Cub Swanson, for having 40 professional fights going into his 41st, from what I could find, he's only really faced a few southpaws in the last, I don't know, 15 years. Jens Pulver's a southpaw. Again, he lost that fight by submission. And then Chrome Gracie was a southpaw as well, where that was a wild fight of the night. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Giga, who's apparently chopped liver to a lot of the Fight Night Picks fans now that he lost one fight to Calvin Kattar. Giga Chikadze, just see you later. Forget about you. But Matt, when you do focus in on this one, when you do look at the odds, Swanson open at plus 175, plus 165 right now. Jonathan Martinez open around a minus 205, minus 210. He's a minus 200. We threw it out there to you in the YouTube community tab. Surprise to us, it is to you. Your total votes, 53% with Cub Swanson, 47% with Jonathan Martinez. In the comments, Devin saying Jonathan's last fight was such a clean performance, and I believe if he can turn it into a similar fight, i.e. don't brawl or go punch for punch, he'll have a good chance against Cub. Chandler Witt saying 38-year-old Cub looked phenomenal his last time out against 38-year-old Elkins. 28-year-old Martinez looked phenomenal against 31-year-old Morales. Gonna have to side with youth in this one. And Matt, we'll go with Tommy saying Cub by TKO. So, Matt, the fans are kind of split on this one, the fan vote. Martinez is a pretty big favorite. Can he implement the kicks early, go to the body, go to the legs, go to the head, and get a win over Cub Swanson? Because you know, regardless of 145 or 135, the volume's going to be there for Cub Swanson. And I talked about efficiency earlier. In terms of striking defense and offense, he's very accurate, and he doesn't receive a ton of damage. Actually, he has 60% striking defense, WEC, UFC.
He's been hit a lot, though.
Well, yeah.
I worry about Cub Swanson at 135, not only for his punch resistance, but I'm also curious to see what his punching power is going to be at this weight class too, because Cub Swanson isn't the best power puncher, but he does have good power. I know that's a weird thing to say, but he went like 6 years without a TKO win up until the Daniel Pineda win. I'm not exactly sure who his previous knockout loss was or win was. I guess it's something we can figure out very, very fast. But for Cub Swanson, it's normally just an accumulation of his striking that really does get to his opponents before his natural power does, because he went all the way from Dennis Seaver in 2013 to Daniel Pineda in 2020.
Pineda burned hot in the first round of that fight and looked really good. That was Swanson coming back off of an ACL surgery. To then Swanson dropping Pineda twice in the second round. Pineda was gassed.
Swanson looked really good in that fight. I'm just saying, people think about Cub Swanson as the guy who's won his last two fights by going out there and getting a lot of stoppages. I'll give you he's a great striker. I don't know if he's a great power puncher. And I think for that reason, I do side with Jonathan Martinez in this matchup. It's weird having a fight with Jonathan Martinez at 135 and not having the weight question mark be with Martinez, but I'm curious to see how Cub Swanson's cardio is going to hold up. I'm very curious to see what his punch resistance is going to be. And if Martinez does look like the fighter that he has been post-Davy Grant, he's a little bit more defensively sound. He's still that offensive dynamo. We all know how good his combinations are, his kicks in particular. That's why I am going to side with Jonathan Martinez, but it should be a fun co-main event.
I have Martinez, southpaw stance, opens up the body kick. It's a big specialty of his, and I'm eager to see how he's able to implement it, whether he goes teep with the front leg and then he's able to mix it up to the 3 levels. I really do like the matchup. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. It's on our Fight of the Night screen for a reason. Let us know down below in the comment section who you have in this matchup. You folks help drive this show. And in the main event, we have Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araujo. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.